Starfield is the biggest, most anticipated game of 2023. It's already the top seller on Steam and is of course the #1 most wishlisted game on Steam as well. This is no doubt due to the extensive showcase we got recently alongside Todd Howard's brilliant marketing skills. Here today we accept Starfield's massive potential, but also realize we only see the game as Bethesda wants us to see it. Here are Starfield's 10 biggest problems so far. Bethesda has created a massive world with over 1,000 explorable planets and moons, extensive environments filled with varying plants, animals, and resources. But it seems like this guy right here expects us to walk across planet after planet over hundreds of times.
When you're done exploring, you can walk back or fast travel to your ship.
From what's been shown, there's seemingly no land vehicles or any way to travel on planets besides walking. There is a chance Bethesda just hasn't shown this feature yet, but are those chances really that high considering how much gameplay we've already gotten? You might be thinking, why not use your highly customizable ship to get around the planet? Landing and taking off from planets isn't going to be completely in your control. We haven't seen exactly how this feature is going to work, but we just assume you'll have to get very close to a planet in orbit and then pick a landing spot which will trigger a cutscene. That part Bethesda has shown. And it seems like you can pick a landing spot mostly anywhere on a planet. Taking off will likely work in a similar way, where you take off from your ship, trigger a cutscene, and then you're in orbit around the planet. This is a bit disheartening that we can't actually do this manually, but it seems like you'll still be able to land anywhere on the planet like I said before. But going back to the issue of not having any transportation on the planet itself, does Bethesda really expect us to go back to our ship and then fly to a slightly farther area across the planet? This would mean for one planet, we would very likely have to see multiple cutscenes to travel it very quickly. Unfortunately, I do think this is what is expected because they've already mentioned that you can fast travel back to your ship, which would play a part in making this quicker, but you still have to watch cutscene after cutscene for one planet alone. That's a lot of cutscenes. Gamers have been questioning Starfield's frame rate since the first showing. Even at times in the recent gameplay, footage looks to dip quite a bit. With recent news of the Xbox Series X being capped at 30 frames per second,
We do lock it at 30. Because we want that fidelity.
you have to question whether this will be noticeable after release. Even though Todd Howard has assured us it's a very good experience with a very stable frame rate, it's not like he's going to come out and admit that frame rate is an issue anyway. Alongside Xbox players worried about frame rate, PC players aren't feeling much more comfortable either. Minimum hardware requirements on Steam are a 1070 Ti or an RX 5700, and for the CPU either a Ryzen 2600X or an i7 6800K. This is pretty demanding, especially for a minimum requirement. We don't know if these minimum requirements are supposed to be targeting 30 FPS or 60 FPS, and sometimes these Steam requirements are totally off, so it's hard to know whether these are accurate for sure. Starfield's graphics look great, but as far as character models go, we aren't getting anything better than we've seen in the past. The stiff mouth and stiff facial animations aren't ideal.
Completely resistant to my otherwise irresistible charm.
I can't believe I get to stand near you, breathing the same air. I've got to have every molecule.
And I would say other animations like jumping aren't too impressive either. Not to say these animations aren't good enough to do the job necessarily, but they just aren't top of the line. We've definitely seen better in other games which were more hyper-focused on this aspect of development. Most players are willing to give this a pass as they know how difficult the other aspects of this game look to be. Dogfighting and even boarding enemy ships is one of the coolest looking aspects to Starfield. The question becomes, why waste time grinding planet after planet for resources when Bethesda has already confirmed we can sell ships we steal for credits as well? This one is more so my personal theory, I will admit, but if it takes me longer to land and walk around for resources on a planet, why wouldn't I just hijack or destroy one of many enemy ships in orbit? They've already shown they have cargo themselves, likely similar to what we would collect on the planets, so my best guess is that Bethesda will have a mechanism that makes going to planets very good, or will somehow nerf this way of hijacking highway robbery to make it a little bit less efficient. I'll admit this one's a bit nitpicky, but everyone knows making a space jump isn't generally smart to do right into a planet.
You kidding? They're right there gaining?
Traveling through hyperspace ain't like dust and crops, boy.
Without precise calculations, we'd fly right through a star or bounce too close to a supernova.
You might have been wondering where this one's been. This has to be one of the most talked about critiques when it comes to Starfield, and for good reason. 1,000 planets means tons of empty space, making everyone wonder what really is the point of going to the majority of them. Todd Howard himself has leaned on this idea of beauty regardless of empty space.
In terms of, well, what's fun about landing on a planet where there's potentially nothing? You'll be in a city and then you hear this, and you hear the engine, you look up and a ship is taking off or coming out. Like,
That's great.
there's nothing for you to do, but I think it's awesome.
We know about a few major cities mentioned, but we don't really know an exact number of cities. There's of course smaller settlements across the galaxy as well as star yards with people on them that you can explore, but we don't know how many of these there really are. In a world with 1,000 planets, it comes into question how many can there really be. This ties in with the complaints about emptiness on planets. Everything revolves around plants, animals, and resources. From what we've seen, every planet seems to have about 3 to 4 plants, 3 to 4 animals, and around 8 types of resources. We've seen some monuments on planets you can discover, but we haven't seen just how special these will be on any given planet. I would love if we can find a random guy on a planet that somehow has a new part or a new upgrade for us. Anything really that makes the planet stand out from the rest. But we haven't really seen that so far. The final point here is one that has been improved on, but hasn't been perfected. Starfield's combat has certainly gotten better since last year, but to say it's perfect would be an exaggeration. The guns and modding system look solid with varying weapon types and different ammunition. I'm more so talking about how AI interacts with you when fighting and reacting to your moves. It's not as bad as it was, but I wouldn't say this is an advancement in games by any means. Enemies look stiff at times and utterly useless. Maybe this could change with different difficulty level, but we'll have to wait and see.